So today, while we're going over Pythagorean theorem, we're going to be finding the missing side. So the first thing I want to do is draw an arrow from my right angle across or adjacent from my right angle to know which side is my hypotenuse. So I can see that I am given my hypotenuse. My hypotenuse is always C. So my hypotenuse is 13. So I'm going to fill this out. And A is 5. A is typically your shortest side. C is always your hypotenuse, which is your longest side. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start with my formula. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Now that I already know what my values are, I am going to go ahead and substitute those numbers in. So I have 5 squared plus B squared is equal to 13 squared. So once I go ahead and do that, I am then going to square the numbers. Once I square the numbers, remember squaring is multiplying a number by itself. So 5 squared will be 5 times 5, which is 25, plus B squared is equal to 13 times 13, which gives me 169. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and fill in my chart. 25 is A squared, and 169 is C squared. I am still not done with my equation, so I'm going to go ahead and complete that all the way until I get B by itself, because that's the goal. We're looking for that side length. We're missing for the missing side B, so we have to finish our equation all the way through. So I'm going to subtract my constant, which is 25. What I do on one side, I do to the other. This cancels out and leaves me with B squared. B squared is equal to 144. Okay, so B squared is 144. So in order for me to get B by itself, I need to do the opposite of squaring, which is to find the square root. And now I have B is equal to 12. Now notice, once I find the square root of B squared, the exponent drops. Okay, remember, the square root is the opposite of squaring a number. When you write your equation, you want to make sure your equation is all the way from formula to your missing side that you're looking for. Now let's take a look at example B. Once again, I'm going to draw my arrow across to ensure I'm not looking for C. So C is 5 and A is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my formula. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Okay. A is 3, so I'm going to substitute in my values. So 3 squared plus B squared is equal to 5 squared. 3 squared is 9 plus B squared is equal to 25. So A squared is 9, C squared is 25. I'm going to subtract 9 on both sides because the objective is to get B by itself. So I have B squared equal to 16. B squared is equal to 16. Find the square root. B is equal to 4. Remember, it's A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared, not A plus B equals C. Okay, remember, we find our values that we were given, substitute them in, find what it is squared, add or subtract, whichever formula tells you to do, to find your missing side. Now let's take a look at example C. It says approximately how many inches of framing are needed for a wooden picture frame that has a width of 12 inches and a hypotenuse of 21 inches. So the best thing is always draw a picture. When you're given a word problem, draw a picture so you can see it. Okay? So I know a picture frame is in the shape of a rectangle or square. So I'm going to draw that, and then I'm going to draw a diagonal. Okay? I'm going to draw a diagonal. Now it says approximately how many inches of framing will be needed. Well, for a wooden picture frame, that means I'm looking for the perimeter. But in order to find the perimeter, I must first figure out what the length is. Okay? So we know the width is 12 and we know the hypotenuse is 21. So we know the diagonal is 21. Okay? So I'm going to start with my formula. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. So it tells us that we have our hypotenuse and a side length, but just in case you forgot, draw your arrow. So we're going to say A is 12. That's the width. So we have 12 squared plus B squared is equal to 21 squared. So now I am going to fill out my equation using PEMDAS. We have to worry about our exponents first. So that gives me 144 plus B squared is equal to 21 squared. So we're going to go ahead and use that calculator. 21 squared gives us 441. So we have 441. Okay. So now I'm going to subtract 144 on both sides. That cancels, leaves us with B squared. B squared is equal to 441 minus 144, which gives us 297. I'm going to find the square root. And the square root is approximately 17.2. We're going to round to the nearest tenth. Okay, so it's approximately 17.2. So that means my length is 17.2. Now I figured out my missing side. That's done. So before I move on, I'm going to go back and reread the problem and make sure I've answered the question. Because remember, sometimes we have multi-step questions where, yes, you need to find the Pythagorean theorem, but you still need to operate another step in order to solve for the answer. So as I go back, it says approximately how many inches of framing are needed for a wooden picture frame. So no, I didn't answer the question because I need to find the perimeter of this picture frame. Okay, so to find the perimeter, it's 2 times your length plus 2 times your width. Well, we know our length is 17.2 and our width is 12. We want to find the inches that we have. So 17.2 times 2 gives us 34.4. plus 24. And that gives us 58.4 inches. And that would be your answer. So make sure you organize your work in a way where I can see exactly what you do from your formula all the way to the missing side. And if you have an extra step, make sure you organize your extra step. Now let's take a look at example D. Now example D is a little bit different because in this instance, it gives us the area. So in a way, we don't have to work backwards, but we are a little bit. So I still draw my arrow from my right triangle to identify my hypotenuse. So this is C. They give us the area instead of the side length. So when I plug my numbers in, I'm going to put 225 under C squared because that represents the area. 144 is going to be B squared because that represents the area, okay? Now I'm going to start with my formula. My formula is still A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. We're still looking for the missing side, but we were given the area. So I don't know what A squared is, so I'm going to leave that as A squared. But I know exactly what B squared is. B squared is 144. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 144. Not 144 squared, but 144 because we already know what B squared is. And the same thing for C squared, we're going to put 225. Now I want to get A by itself, so I'm going to subtract 144 from 225. And then we get 81. That cancels. A squared is equal to 81. So we know A squared is equal to 81, but we want to get A by itself because we're looking for that missing side. So I'm going to find the square root. The square root of 81 is 9. So that missing side is 9. And then to find your other missing sides, if B squared is 144, to find the side length, we do the square root. Square root of 144 is 12. And the square root of 225 is 15. So you're going to go ahead and complete your assignment. Make sure that you show your work on every problem from the equation or formula all the way down to the missing side. Have a good day.